The Salem witch trials will forever be an American tragedy that can serve as a lesson for future generations. Many innocent lives were taken for unjustifiable reasons, one being witchcraft, a practice of magical skills, spells, and abilities which can be culturally and religiously associated with evil, the sinister, and the devil. Christianity and other religions believed the devil could give mortals power to harm others in exchange for the devil's loyalty and were called witches. In a time where Christian religion was prominent and controlled society, to think outside of religion or to oppose it was just outrageous or lunatic. Christianity heavily influenced societal standards, so clergymen and religious leaders were at the top of social hierarchy and laws were influenced by religion. The Salem witch trials are an example of injustice caused by rash decisions and irrational fear. Many lives were taken by false accusations of witchcraft, something that physically cannot be proven true or false. Then, there are still other means or possibilities that could have been looked at besides witchcraft, as well as the play The Crucible by Arthur Miller, a story that exemplifies the injustices and possible motives citizens had against each other to pinpoint and accuse. The unfortunate tragedy of the Salem witch trials is a part of history that demonstrates the fatalities and severities of mass hysteria and ignorance. The Salem witch trials were a period where the town of Salem held many of its citizens accountable for being witches. Salem is a city located on the east coast of Massachusetts, United States. It was a part of colonial America called New England, where Europeans started their new lives across the ocean. The Salem witch trials lasted for about a year, but even then, the cases of witches and witchcraft were prominent in Europe. There was a witchcraft craze lasting from the 14th century to the 17th. Although, the Salem witch trials happened towards the end of this period. Proof of European belief of witches can be found in literature, such as Shakespeare's Macbeth, where witches were used as a symbol of evil and the unexplained. To give a bit of context of what kind of society they were living in during the trials, the 5 capital crimes of Massachusetts in 1641 were as follows: adultery, witchcraft, murder, poisoning, and bestiality. Adultery is the worship of idols, someone or something in the place of God. The fact that adultery and witchcraft, crimes against religion, come before murder show how valued and important religion was above all things. Because of religion, clergymen were the most respected and followed, so they pursued in the prosecutions. Back in Salem, people started being accused of witchcraft when a group of young girls displayed disturbing and peculiar behavior. The girls would scream, throw fits, suffer convulsions, act like animals, and they were described as being possessed. By May 1692, 8 Salem girls had claimed to be enchanted by individuals who most of them had never met. Since claims could not be proven false, they'd be assumed true, and anybody who had a finger pointed at them would automatically be punished. The first case of witchcraft in Salem comes from 2 girls, Abigail Williams and Elizabeth Betty Parris, who were the niece and daughter of Samuel Parris, an ordained minister, respectively. The 2 girls also reported an invisible being that would bite and pinch their arms. Ann Putnam and other girls in Salem began acting similarly. The doctor would diagnose their behavior being involved with supernatural causes, so in this case, witchcraft. The first who were accused of causing this witchcraft were the Parris family's Caribbean slave Tituba, a homeless beggar, Sarah Good, and an old poor woman, Sarah Osborne. Most people who were accused of the trials were viewed as outcasts and minorities. This included people of color, the homeless, the poor, and anybody who opposed the Catholic religion. Because of the lack of knowledge and technology back then, the unexplained was justified as witchcraft since it was unknown. A little under 200 people were named witches and wizards, the youngest victim being 5 years old and the oldest being almost 80. This age range proves that nobody was safe from getting fingers pointed at them, and anybody could have been a witch. In the end, only 20 people were wrongly executed for witchcraft. Very soon after the trials ended in the spring of 1693, the people of Salem realized their mistake of accusing others of witchcraft, and judges and clergymen confessed error and guilt. January 14, 1697 was named a day of fasting and soul-searching for the tragedy of Salem. In 1702, the court declared the trials being unlawful. Then a bill was passed in Massachusetts restoring the good names of the convicted, and money was given as compensation to their heirs. Almost 250 years later, the state of Massachusetts publicly apologized for the trials, but that cannot bring back the lives of those wrongly convicted. Witches and witchcraft, by popular belief, are not true due to its lack of scientific explanation, and there are many other reasons to how this mass hysteria had started. Because the people of Salem recognized their mistakes and labeled the trials unjustifiable murder, it proves there was no actual witchcraft present. If there were actual cases of witchcraft, they wouldn't have thought they did anything wrong. There would be no need for an apology or confessions of error and guilt. Anytime something bad happened, they would blame it on witchcraft. An event people blamed witchcraft on was King William's War. In 1689, a war between England, France, and the Native Americans for the American colonies broke out. Many innocent villagers became displaced and had to seek refuge. Some people displaced into what is now Nova Scotia and Quebec. Others went back to Europe, and many people died. This hurt the production of resources for villages in New England, like Salem. Families who depended on agriculture and those with wealth had a rivalry for food and resources. The greedy nature and quarrel of Salem's people were justified by the devil's work, a case where people blamed it on witchcraft. Economic deterioration and food shortages led to beliefs of witches. Temperatures would drop, lands were tarnished, and resource production slowed. The damage to the economy and the slowdown of population growth caused scapegoating towards witches. Anytime something bad would happen, they would blame it on witchcraft. There are physiological theories for the mass hysteria and witchcraft accusations that could be explained by disease. The behavior of the girls who were possessed and cursed by witches could be explained by fungus poisoning and undiagnosed encephalitis, an inflammation of the brain commonly caused by viral infection. The side effects and weird behavior caused by witchcraft could have been from convulsive ergotism. The fungus could have come from the forests the girls would play in and is also found in rye and other grains coming from their agriculture. Rye was also one of the most prevalent grains grown in Massachusetts at the time. The fungus would cause hallucinations, LSD-like effects, skin conditions like vitiligo, or headaches and seizure-like muscle contractions. Another disease or condition the girls suffered from could have been encephalitis lethargica, inflammation of the brain coming from birds and bugs. This would leave victims paralyzed or motionless, something they would have thought was caused by witchcraft. Anytime something bad happened, they would blame it on witchcraft. The play The Crucible is based directly on the Salem witch trials. Many of the names used in the play are historically accurate, like the Paris family and Tituba, the Proctor family, and Abigail Williams. The Crucible uses the Salem witch trials to symbolize injustice caused by rash decisions and irrational fear, as well as some of the characters using it for revenge and desires. The antagonist of the play, Abigail Williams, uses the trials to eliminate John's wife because she is in love with him. Abigail is depicted as a liar, manipulative, and cruel. Since she is a victim of witchcraft, she has the power to point fingers at anybody. She manipulates the town to believe Elizabeth Proctor is guilty of witchcraft. She knows what will happen to the people she falsely accuses while they are innocent, proving that the Salem witch trials could have been motivated by human selfishness and greed. The events of the Salem witch trials are an American tragedy caused by mass hysteria. The irrational fear and hysteria causing the trials brought the worst in people. Many lives were lost and injustices happened due to those who were wrongly accused of witchcraft. There could have been other causes of bad events, but of course the unexplained or sinister was always justified by witchcraft. The Crucible demonstrates the motives people could have had to accuse others of witchcraft, such as power and jealousy. The fear people had for witchcraft shows how controlled by religion society was and how much society has evolved since then.